Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, beautiful people, and I hope you are doing well in your little corner of the world today. If you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend doing so. And if you are already subscribed, check to make sure that the downloads are still on. This way you're going to get notifications when a new podcast episode comes out, and you'll be continuing to grow and learn and be able to have more and more every day of the relationship that you want. And that's my main goal for you. So definitely do that. Today, on this episode, we're going to get into a thing that I see, maybe one of the main issues that I see that really holds us back as women or keeps us from having the relationship that we really want with our partner, and a beautiful solution so that it's not holding us back anymore. And this is especially for you if you've ever felt like a sense of burden or frustration that you have to be the one to work on your relationship. Well, maybe it looks like your husband isn't working much on it. Maybe he truly isn't. Or maybe you just kind of get frustrated or annoyed by the idea of having to do any work at all to have the relationship you want. Like maybe you just feel like you should be able to be completely just totally raw and naturally who you are. And your marriage should just be good. And you feel frustrated, discouraged, disappointed, all those hard emotions when that isn't what's happening. So I'm excited to start with a little story here today. But first, I do want to highly recommend, if you haven't yet already, or even just to revisit this episode, an older episode, which episode 137. It's called Discouraged in Love, 3 Toxic Marriage Myths Causing It. That episode is very relevant. It's very similar to what we're going to talk about today with some very different elements in it. It really complements today's episode really well. So absolutely, after you listen to this episode, 100% go check out episode 137. All right. So the other day, I saw this post on Instagram. And, my Instagram feed tends to be filled with what's happening politically these days and cute cat videos to bring me pleasure. And there's a fair amount of other relationship coaches over there, especially coaches that talk to men, because I find that really interesting. And I'm actually working on a little course to help your partner be a better partner to you. I think that is important for sure. But of course, I mainly talk to women. And so I also see some posts that are directed at women. And this specific post that I saw really just had some great suggestions for how to communicate well with your husband. It wasn't the post that really got me. It was the comments that super got under my skin. And this happens occasionally when I'm looking at comments on posts like this. So about 70% of the comments were angry comments where women were saying things like, why is this just directed at women? Doesn't it take 2 partners to make a good relationship? And how come the man doesn't have to work in the relationship? How come these communication tactics are so formal? Can't we just be real and raw and human? Basically, all in all, the comments kind of amounted to, we as women shouldn't have to work on our relationships. The men are the ones with the problems. We women should just get to be totally unskillful and be totally adored for it. And it almost felt like, how dare you offer me advice? How dare you tell me I have something to learn? Men should just be different. So I know you are here in my little world because you care about your relationship. You care about being happy and fulfilled in love. And that's such a beautiful thing. So, because I know you care about that so much, I'm going to tell you the loving truth, which is that if you are thinking at all along the lines of how so many of those women who commented on that post were thinking, Or even if you're simply thinking something along the lines of like, how come I have to be the one to do the work on our relationship? Which again is a thought that so many women have. Like I hear it all the time. I know I used to feel that way for sure. It's actually the main question I get from women at first, like before they're working with me, is like, how come I have to be the one? Like, isn't it about him too? Or doesn't he have to? Or doesn't he the only one that should? Right? So if you're having a thought like that, if you're wondering that as well, please, 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 please listen up and take all that I have to say today really seriously and to heart. That line of thinking will get you nowhere closer to the happiness you want in your relationship. In fact, it will keep you locked into cycles of misery in your relationship. That line of thinking is why so many women are so unhappy, or even just kind of unhappy in their marriages. It's that kind of thinking is going to destroy you and your partnership from the inside out. And unfortunately, it is pervasive, right? I mean, looking at this Instagram post and reading the comments was nothing new to me. But for whatever reason, that day it really got under my skin. Maybe because I feel like I haven't addressed this a lot lately. And I feel like so many women are really missing out because of that line of thinking on having the love in their lives that I so want them to have. So not only did it kind of annoy me, but it kind of broke my heart. And I really felt sad about it. And I sat with it for a while. And what came of it is that I wanted to remind you of this. And I wanted to talk about this today to make sure you aren't falling into that awful trap that will keep you from the happiness you deserve in your marriage. Because the truth is, to have a great relationship, we actually do need to learn some things as women, as any human. Because one person in the relationship can absolutely change the track of the marriage for the rest of your lives together. Because a woman has so much power when it comes to love, when she chooses to have that power, when she chooses to harness that power, which can take some learning. Because putting the power to change things in someone else's hands, right? By putting the power to change things in your man's hands, in other words, by blaming him for what's going wrong in your relationship, that will always weaken your capacity for change. Really, it will completely undermine the power that you do have to change things for the so much better. And perhaps most importantly, just by thinking that your man should be different, or that he is the one who is unskilled and that he's the one who should change, just by thinking that he should and needs to change doesn't make it happen, right? Like, that thought process doesn't change him. And pushing him and nagging him and arguing for him to change also most of the time doesn't make it happen. Now, I have said, if you're on my email list, which you totally should be, I did recently put out an email that said there is a time to be pushy, and I explained when that is. I'm not saying we're never assertive and pushy, but when that's our general approach, when we're always trying to get him to be a better quote unquote partner, we are usually not doing that skillfully. We're not influencing. We're usually pushing and trying to control and trying to get him to be other than he is. And that does not actually work. It actually stops change in its tracks, especially when you're unwilling to change yourself. So if you're thinking and acting as if he should change and you're not doing anything to change yourself, even if you are doing something to change yourself, but you're also focusing on how he should be changing, that's all magical thinking. It's not going to change anything. Now, the question is, can he change? Of course, but not by you telling him he should. Unless he is the rare man who is truly internally motivated to change, at least on his own, right? Like it's coming from himself. So unless he's that person at this moment in time, his change comes from you changing the way you show up in the relationship. Now, I am not saying there are not men who are like this. There are men who want to grow and change and who are actively working on that. And that might even be your man in his own way, even if it's hard for you to see. But the truth is, many men are not super internally motivated to change, and hearing you tell them to change isn't going to work either. What they need is to see you working on your side of the street and showing up with him in ways that inspire him to change, that influence him to change. The way you show up in the relationship can absolutely change how he shows up in the relationship. And I see it every single time I work with a client, and even when I'm just helping put people in my courses. So the thing is here, though, I want you to hear this. This could totally be true in reverse. If he decided to initiate change and he started being soft and loving and affectionate with you, you also might start responding quite differently to him. Yes? And then the relationship itself will become a new one. So it works in both directions, but I am not talking to men right now. I am talking to you because I get you, because I have been you, and because I know you want change, because you are unhappy and you want things to be so much better. And the tendency in our world, and actually the research shows that more women are unhappy in the relationship than men. And so women are, they want it so much. They want great relationships so much that you have, because of that desire, because of that want, you're actually more capable of creating that change. So this is one reason coaches talk to women more than men, oftentimes, or at least there are lots of women coaches who coach women on relationships. And I want to put this in a different way. You want things to be so much better, and because of that, you are the best leverage point for change in your relationship. You are the doorway to the change you want in your marriage. And I've said this a lot before on the podcast, but you are actually better equipped to lead the relationship's change because you are, as a woman, you're literally wired towards connection more than men. So you are literally better equipped to make these changes. This means you have more power in this realm, and this is why I work with women in large part. So you are the doorway to the change you want in your marriage, so long as you decide you are willing, for the sake of your own happiness, to learn a few things, to try some new ways, to communicate in new ways and interact in new ways with your honey. Which, yes, will require you to stretch yourself some and might feel a little awkward at first, but soon will light you and your relationship up in ways you could have only dreamed of before. So please, 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 this is my huge plea to all of you. Don't be like so many women out there who condemn themselves to unhappy relationships by poo-pooing advice directed at them simply because men also have room to grow to be great partners. The truth is, we all have room to grow to be great partners. Don't let your partner's, your man's need to grow also stop you from doing your own growth work. Please. Instead, I truly deeply invite you to be the woman who takes off all that old conditioning, all those beliefs, all that why do I have to stuff, and creates the happiness in love that you deserve. Now, as always, I truly believe the best way for you to create that happiness in love that you deserve is by coaching directly with me. Because I can target the things that are unique to you, that are stopping you, and that are challenging you in your relationship, right? So there's nothing that can replace the power of the one-to-one coaching experience with me to help you have that relationship that you really want. But right now, I do want to give you something today to help. Actually, I want to give you two things. The first is what I'm about to share, and the second is that strong encouragement to listen to that episode I mentioned earlier. That's 137. So listen to what I'm going to say now, and then go listen to that episode. So this is for those of you who do feel resentful and burdened by the idea of doing work on your relationship and wonder why you have to be the one to do it, or why I and other relationship coaches work primarily with women in the relationship instead of couples. And what I'm about to share is actually an old, early episode, and I'm re-offering it to you here with a little bit of change, a little edited, because it is so relevant to what we're talking about here, and I think it's really, really important to revisit this. even if you listen to this, even if it starts, you hear it and you're like, oh, I kind of remember listening to this one. This is something I actually think all of us should revisit at least once a year. It's that important. And really what you're about to hear could be the thing that will completely and utterly propel you and your marriage into the one you want it to be. It is that powerful when you really take it in and deeply reflect on what I ask you to reflect on in it. So perk your ears. Here we go. So today I want to talk about one of the big things that really kills our capacity to create the changes that we want in our marriages and our lives, so that you can be aware of it and really catch it in yourself and ultimately get that kind of barrier, this kind of barrier that I'm going to talk about, out of your own way and really get like resourced and refueled. Like I think about the metaphor of a car, right? That goes to get, what's the word? Like fully serviced. That's right. and fueled up, right? So that you can begin actually making the changes that you really want, that will feel so good to you. And specifically, of course, in the realm of your marriage and love life. So that's what this episode will be about today. And it might surprise you where we're going to head. But, one of the reasons I want to talk about this is because one of the things that I hear from clients who are just starting with me, or from people in my community, I used to have a Facebook group. It's no longer, but I would hear this a lot in the Facebook group, is these words. Why do I have to be the one to do the work on my marriage? And I wouldn't be surprised if many of you listening have that question too. So I totally get it. Like we don't enter into a relationship wanting to feel alone in it, right? Or like we're the only ones putting effort into it, right? That's not how we think a relationship should be, right? So, and I have been there. I've been in that position thinking, why do I have to be the one to work on it? Why do I have to put all this energy into it? And I personally have worked with that feeling and those kinds of thoughts a lot. And one of the biggest things I know is that kind of thinking does not serve me, and it does not serve you. Because when we're thinking that way, why do I have to? Tell me where I'm wrong, but when you think that way, you probably feel burdened and resentful. Can you sense that? And those feelings, burden and resentment, are not going to motivate you to do the work. It's not going to fuel you up or get you excited to make the changes that you want in your marriage, right? When we feel burdened and resentment, we feel kind of heavy. We don't feel full of energy, that's for sure. It tends to not fuel us to create change. It tends to freeze us up and keep us from making the changes that we want. Because, when we're feeling that way, ultimately it's kind of like we resign ourselves, or we might end up. So this is the thing that I really want to caution you against, is that when you're thinking, why do I have to? And you're feeling those feelings that come along with that, you might just like kind of resign yourself to your marriage just being how it is now, or maybe feeling even worse than it does now, because marriages kind of are not totally immune to the law of entropy, where things just kind of unravel without attention, right? Without upkeep. They too tend to disintegrate and get harder and feel worse. So when we're resigning ourselves to just tolerating okayness, or dullness, or low-grade suffering, or, lots of pain and upset in our marriages, we slowly wither and die inside. That is not what we are alive for. That is not what we are here for. So when I hear those words, like, why do I have to be the one to do the work? I always answer, there is no have to involved. Because the truth is, you really don't have to. You don't have to put any effort or work into your relationship, right? There's nobody holding a gun to your head. There's nobody forcing you to. It's always 100% optional that you do put work into your marriage. I think that when we have this line of thinking, why do I have to? And we feel that burden and that resentment that comes from it, it's because we're forgetting something important. we're forgetting that we don't have to. We're forgetting that we actually want to, because we want the result. We don't want to have our soul wither and die, right? We want to feel nourished by our marriage. We want to have that loving relationship that we've always dreamed of. We want to have that experience of deep love that we're actually here for, we're cut out for. When we're feeling that resistance to doing the work and why should we have to, right? We're forgetting why we would want to do that work. The sad but true fact of life, and which as a young child, I would have fought this fact very fiercely, is that life is not always fair. I know this was true for me. I think many of us feel like we're entitled to having great love. Like that we're entitled to just have it given to us. I do believe that, like I've said, we are here to experience deep love. We are here to love our marriages and love our lives. But it isn't something that we just get handed. I wish it was, but it isn't something that just gets delivered to us, especially in this modern, complex, complicated world that we live in. We have been born into a world, into a culture that doesn't just hand that to us, right? We're actually having that, that deep love that we really want, that actually can be way more the exception than the rule. Because most of us haven't been taught how. And that's all that's missing. We haven't learned how to create that love, to have that love. I think so many of us feel like we're like little plants deprived of sunlight and water. We kind of haven't been planted in a soil and given the light and the water that we need to grow and thrive, these little plants that we are. But that's something that we can learn, we can create for ourselves. So like I've said over and over, if having that kind of deeply loving, nourishing marriage is something that you truly want, you can have it. You can. But it doesn't just come handed to you. It is your responsibility. It is your choice. And it is your truly wonderful privilege to create that. That's how I see it. And it will mean growing and working at it. And side note, the work does not always have to feel hard or burdensome. I want you to know that, because I work on my marriage and I love working on my marriage, and I'll get into that. It truly can be fun. It truly can be joyous, and even the most rewarding thing that you've ever done. I hear that regularly from clients. I've heard it from so many people, so many women, and I've done it myself, and I've witnessed and felt the profound joy and pride, and ultimately the thrill of being the one to shift and change my marriage into something that I deeply cherish and feel so proud of. So you can have that, but the first stumbling block to having that is often this thought: why do I have to? Right? Because it leads to this resentment, it leads to that sense of burden, and really keeps you from making those changes and growing. So these thoughts and these feelings, they really come from that lizard part of you, right? We talked about that in episode 120. The primal part of you that ultimately kind of tends to work against you when it comes to having the love that you want. That primal part is there to protect you, but it often does that by keeping you from a lot of the things that you want. So if you want to go back and listen to episode 120, if you haven't yet, totally recommend that. It's really an important foundation for understanding this, but you can totally keep listening today to get a lot out of this podcast without having heard that one. When you get yourself free of the tenacious grip of those feelings and those thoughts of why do I have to? You actually are freeing yourself up to create that profound joy that comes from you being the catalyst of making your marriage amazing. So If you do find yourself feeling resentful, if you do find yourself feeling burdened or not motivated, or, if you're thinking, why should I have to be the one, or some version of that thought. And if you find that you're not taking a lot of action and you're just wishing your partner would do this or that or change, if you're not applying some of the things that I've shared in this podcast or other things that you've learned that can support and help your relationship, or that you could do to help your relationship, I want you to know this is not something to beat yourself up about if that's going on for you. It really just means you're having thoughts, your primal brain is rearing its head, and it's kind of getting the best of you. And that is totally normal, right? And it really just means that that's happening, and it's making you forget something so important. And so the remedy here is to get more conscious. And what I mean by that is to slip into the wiser part of you, the more conscious part of you. And remember, reconnect with your big why. Your big why. So here is how. Instead of, or whenever you find yourself asking yourself the question, why do I have to be the one to do the work? Or feeling that burden that you feel, the resistance to doing it, I want you to ask yourself a much better question. And actually, I want you to do that now, today. You can ask it again when that thought comes up in your mind someday, tomorrow, or the next day, the future. But right now, I invite you to ask yourself this question. What is my big why? What is my big reason for doing this work? Another version of a couple of other versions of this question is, why would I want to do this work? Why would I want to put my heart and soul and my energy and my time into doing this work on my marriage? Why is this important for me to do? It's so easy for us to forget to ask this question, or not know to ask these questions, or not ever think deeply about this. I know I did not think about this for many years. Never did I pause to think deeply about this. So now I do. Because when we pause and really look at our true reasons for putting our effort into, like doing all we can from our side, so much emotional fuel is freed up. We feel so differently. We approach it so differently. And when we're approaching it from enthusiasm or good feelings, then we actually do have so much power to make a difference. So I want to share my personal whys with you. Some of my big reasons for being so invested in growing in my marriage and doing all the work that I can on me in my marriage, and putting my best into my marriage. I'm going to just list a few reasons here. I want to be the best version of myself. When I'm not being her, when I'm not working towards becoming the best version of myself, I'm not as satisfied with my life. I don't feel in integrity, and that matters to me. So putting work into my marriage is for me to feel good about me, right? I actually believe that the purpose of a romantic relationship isn't just to feel great and comfortable all the time. A great marriage is for healing the parts of us that need healing. And that might mean rubbing up against the hard stuff in me, right? Looking at the ways in which I get in my own way and growing into who I really want to be, like healing those parts of me, looking at my obstacles, moving through those and, healing those wounds and changing those protective patterns that keep me like constricted and small and hard and not being who I want to be, so that I can be ultimately the woman I know I can be, and actually who I even am deep down, right? When we clear all the stuff on top. So I'm in it for that. I'm not just in it for the comfort and the joy. I'm in it for the even more deep joy of becoming my best self and showing up as her in my life. So that's a big one for me. Another big why for me is because loving, being my most loving self, feeling deep love for my husband feels good to me. Feeling love is amazing. And I will go to great lengths to feel that in myself. I will do all I can to stay connected to that or reconnect to that feeling of love in me. And it's, a marriage is the perfect place for that, for finding my way over and over back to love. Another big why is that as I grow myself, as I work on myself, it teaches my husband. It influences my husband. And I've talked about this before on the podcast, right? This is true. So many people see this, is that when we work on ourselves, we actually impact the marriage as a whole. We influence our partner and ultimately allow the best of him to come out so that it does improve the marriage as a whole as I work on myself. Yeah. And sort of as an extension of that, the work that I do on me in my marriage ripples out, right? It models healthy relating to my children. What more precious is that, to being able to teach our children how to be in a mature, healthy, deeply respectful, deeply connected relationship, right? They get to take that with them for the rest of their lives, and they get to pass that down through their children and their grandchildren, right? It's a legacy we leave them. When I work on my marriage too, this might sound surprising. What I have found is that it impacts my own parents, my mother and my father, my friends too. My dad, I was just telling my dad about something going on in my life. Actually, we're having Thanksgiving. I'm recording this Thanksgiving week. So tomorrow we're having Thanksgiving with my ex-husband. And because I've worked on that relationship too, because we left that in such a loving place when we were divorced. And my relationship with my husband now is so good that we can all come together at Thanksgiving and celebrate together. And my kids get to witness that, and my parents get to witness that, and they get to feel inspired. Their experience of divorce and marriages was totally different. And so they are being modeled through me, something beautiful. And it's just opening up their world too, which feels amazing, I have to tell you. As I work in my marriage, I'm being an example of what's possible. And it just ripples out. And modeling it is the best form of teaching. And it ripples out, and it ripples out to you, right? And I love that. I am being, and you can be too in your marriage, a force of change, not just in your marriage, but in the world. Because ultimately, the world can heal. We can heal the world, like one relationship at a time, so that we can live in a world where love and respect for all life is actually at the center of our lives. Like, that's what working on my marriage ultimately means to me, is I'm creating a better world for myself, for my children, for all of you, right? We can only start right here in what we can control, which is us. I want to have a world that we can live in and love living in for generations to come. That is my sacred mission, and it is my deep privilege to do that. And it starts right here by working on me in my marriage. And when I connect to that, I am so energized. As you can probably tell from my voice, I become deeply passionate and in love with doing the sometimes uncomfortable work of growing in my marriage, the sometimes uncomfortable work, but often deeply joyful work of growing in my marriage, of growing inside of myself. I want that for you too. I want it to feel amazing to work on your marriage. I want you to feel deeply proud and good. So I want you to ask yourself those questions. Like, what is your big why? And I have some other questions too that might help you connect even more with your why. So here they are for you. Ask yourself, what would your life be like if you were the reason that your marriage became so great? How would you feel about yourself then? What would be possible for you from there? What would be possible in your life once you've been the reason your marriage became so wonderful, just what you want it to be? Really think about that. And maybe when you're hearing those questions, already some little answers are popping up. But if not yet, I invite you to really sit with the questions, answer them, and even pause this podcast if you're not driving, right? Or set it aside sometime later. Don't just hear them and be like, oh yeah. Really pause, answer the questions, and notice how it feels once you've answered the questions. You heard my voice as I was sharing my why with you. I felt so passionate and excited, and I still do right now. And notice that when you're thinking like that, like when you're seeing all the reasons for why you want to do the work on your marriage, notice if you feel more excited, perhaps even compelled, motivated, inspired to start making those changes now. Maybe you even feel lucky and privileged that you get to do this, that you're in a position where you can do this. Just notice. Because connecting to those reasons and connecting to the feelings that those reasons bring us, connecting to that vision we have for our lives, that is the fuel that we need, that we can use to propel us into actually making that vision possible. So different than coming from this feeling of like burden and resentment to come from passion and inspiration and motivation. Yeah? That is the emotional fuel you want. And we can't have that fuel when we're focused on why someone else isn't doing something we want them to do. Maybe you'll notice this now. When you're focused on why your partner, why your husband isn't doing the work that you are, isn't putting in as much as you are, that will zap you of your energy. That will deplete you. That will make the relationship feel that much harder, right? That does the exact opposite of what you want. And if it sounds like I'm speaking from experience, I am, for sure. So start with your why. Start with remembering why you want this, why it matters to you. Start with looking at what you want and what that would mean for you and your whole life. You are the only one that can create that. Your partner can't do that for you. He can contribute for sure, but it starts with you because you want it. And when you want it and you're coming from this place of like being fueled up, you can make that happen so much more easily. And it can feel profoundly joyful. So start with that why. And if you find yourself ready to do this work and make your marriage what you want it to be, and you also know it would be better, easier, and more fun with someone who knows how to navigate all the bumps that come along the way and knows how to get you there to that marriage you want, come be my next client, and together we'll make your marriage no longer burdensome, but something you feel so deeply good about. A client emailed me the other day just to say, I'm feeling super amazed at the changes happening with your support. How we show up in the relationship has the power to alter how our partner responds. It's so simple to say, but when one finally experiences this and embodies this, it's amazing. I love getting emails like that. Another client said, I can't get over how beautiful our relationship is now after working with you. It's almost surreal. It's like we're almost different people now. Neither of us imagined we'd ever be in this place. Our relationship is so strong and so deep now. We've come to a place where we truly get each other. We even lovingly deal with conflict. It's incredible. I'm feeling so good about myself. So that is what happens. And that's possible for you. That's what we'll have you saying when you come coach with me. So if you're interested in doing that, go to the link in the show notes or head over to hspmarriagecoaching.com where you will find a tab that says work with me privately. Click there and you'll learn all about it, and you'll see the form that you need to fill out to start the process. And I will be so thrilled to support you and watch you make these amazing changes in your marriage. All right, my friends, be oh so well.